Welcome in, Seahawks Today by Chat Sports. Tyler Jones here with you. Thanks for joining us. Coming up on today's show, I have off-season grades for your Seattle Seahawks. I'll share with you of what the Seahawks have done this offseason, whether it was in free agency or draft picks that they've made, and we will grade every scenario that the Seahawks have went through over the last couple of months and tell you about all the players that they've added coming up in just a matter of moments. If you've liked the Seahawks offseason to this point, then go ahead and like today's video. And personally, I love what the Seahawks have done this offseason. If you feel that way too, go ahead and like today's video. If not, if you haven't liked what the Seahawks have done, comment and tell me why you don't like what Seattle's done this offseason. Tell me what you think in the comment section. Like the video if you've liked the offseason. If not, comment and tell me why and let me know what you think. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to break down the Seahawks' moves in the draft and in free agency. The Seahawks have not made any trades to this point. That could change, obviously, but at least for the time being, everything that they've done has been through the draft and free agency of new players that they've acquired through this roster. Let's show you the outlook of where things stand right now as we gear towards the home stretch of the offseason. Team needs as they stand right now for the Seahawks include the interior of the defensive line and the interior of the offensive line. That appears to be the glaring weaknesses at this point, in particular, the interior of the defensive line. Notable additions in free agency include Bobby Wagner, Julian Love, Devin Bush, Dre'Mont Jones, just to name a few of what the Seahawks have done so far to this point. Top draft picks include Devon Witherspoon, Jaxon Smith-Njigba, and others. We'll get to all of that. The Seahawks trying to improve off of last year's 9-8 record, which got them the final playoff spot in the NFC. And, you know, as I look at this roster and what Seattle's doing, taking two steps back, you kind of have to remind yourself, remember, the Seahawks are 2 years in to this, I don't even like to call it a rebuild, retooling of the roster, right? And with what that they have done, with the money they've paid Geno Smith, with the money they've given DK Metcalf last offseason, and Dre'Mont Jones and Bobby Wagner, and just being aggressive as they've had, this team is all in win now mode right now. And it's funny because if you would have asked folks, at this time a year ago, they would have said, hey, it's a complete rebuild. Things are starting over for Seattle. But that's not the case. Seattle has still been competitive while getting younger at the same time. Now is the chance that they have to capitalize on this opportunity, go all in to try to win that championship and build a championship caliber roster. That's what John Schneider says Seattle's doing. Let's see if they do it. How would you grade the Seahawks roster as things stand right now? A, B, C, D, or F. Graded for me where things are at this point. Tell me what you think of the Seahawks roster at this point in time. Let's start with the free agent signings. At the end of the regular season last year, an extension for the future, Jason Myers stuck around with the Seahawks, getting a new deal. Jason Myers had a nice bounce-back year last year. Looks like he's going to be around for a while. Phil Haynes also got a new deal. He is going to be back as well and expected to be one of the starting offensive guards for the Seahawks in 2023. Then the big bang that started off the free agency period. Before the free agency window even opened, the Seahawks agreed to a new deal with Geno Smith. And although it was a significant pay raise for Geno Smith from what he's made his entire career, it was still a move for Seattle that was team-friendly. If Geno would have gone to the open market, probably would have commanded more money. So things certainly worked out there for Geno Smith coming off the best season of his career. Dre'Mont Jones you brought in from the Denver Broncos. He's going to be an immediate starter for this team, an instant impact player. A lot of money dished out to him, a lot of excitement what he brings to the table. Old friend Jarran Reed is back in Seattle. He'll be one of your starting defensive linemen on this roster right away after spending time in Kansas City and in Green Bay. Julian Love, one of my favorite signings, especially when you talk about value. And what are the Seahawks necessarily going to do with Julian Love? Is he going to start at safety? Is he going to play nickelback? Are we going to see three high safeties? A lot of flexibility that Julian Love potentially brings to the table. Evan Brown expected to be your starting center. You bring him in from the Detroit Lions, and although the PFF grades and all that aren't that great at Evan Brown, I think he is an upgrade from what you had previously, and he kind of is a stopgap guy. You drafted Olu from Michigan. The hope is that Olu could eventually step in and be that starting center at some point, but at least for now, Evan Brown's good to hold the spot. Drew Lock is back. Drew Lock has starting experience. I know he didn't take a single snap last year for the Seahawks in the regular season, but there's no reason why Drew Lock can't be a quality backup in this league, and he's comfortable in this system. The Seahawks seem to like him a lot. Made a lot of sense to bring Drew Lock back. Devin Bush is in at linebacker, and the good news for Seattle is Devin Bush, as much as he's had his struggles and his ups and downs, if Jordyn Brooks is back healthy, you're not asking Devin Bush to be a starter, that he would be a backup linebacker for this team behind Bobby Wagner, who we'll talk about next, and also behind Jordyn Brooks. But if Jordyn Brooks isn't ready to go right away, Devin Bush is just fine to fill that role and to be a rotational piece until Jordyn Brooks gets back. And then there was Bobby Wagner, who was a big deal for the Seahawks to ultimately end up bringing back to this team. I think all of us sat back and looked last year and said to ourselves, man, it's disappointing to see Bobby Wagner walk out the door and go to an arch rival team like the Rams. It didn't necessarily work out there like they had hoped. But Bobby Wagner still proved himself last year that he's still one of the best linebackers in the NFL. The Seahawks had a major need at the linebacker spot. He's going to be your play caller on the defensive side of the ball, and he's going to make a lot less money than he did previously. So Bobby Wagner, that's a win for Seattle. Free agency, I give this an A for Seattle. I think that they were aggressive. They made some great moves. I like where this team is at, and I think that they're in good shape for this win-now scenario that they're in, of making the most of what they had to work with and the cap space and all that, and just the aggressive negotiating of getting Geno at that price, for getting Bobby Wagner at a big discount compared to what you were paying him previously. That's an A for me. Who was your favorite free agent signing that the Seahawks put together this offseason? Who comes to mind of all those guys we ran through and we talked about? We didn't even talk about the UDFAs, but who was your favorite free agent signing? Let me know in the comment section below who comes to mind. All right, let's go through the draft picks of who the Seahawks brought in. They began with Devon Witherspoon with a number 5 overall pick. A lot of people thought that they were going to go with Jalen Carter with that number 5 selection. Ultimately, Devon Witherspoon is the guy, the corner from Illinois, the best corner in this draft. Corner wasn't the highest priority need for Seattle, but now you have found a great complement alongside Tariq Woolen to have a fantastic secondary there. Then you go with Jaxon Smith-Njigba with the next pick in the first round at pick number 20 from Ohio State. And Smith-Njigba, I think, was the best receiver in this draft. He did have the hamstring injury, but he is saying that he is 100% healthy now, that he's good to go. So that's great to see for Seattle. Then you get Derick Hall in the second round at pick number 37, the edge rusher from Auburn. May have been a reach there. Tom Downey here at Chat Sports gave him a third-round grade, but the Seahawks seem to like what he brings to the table. He'll be a rotational player right away. Zach Charbonnet, the Seahawks took also in the second round at 52, running back from UCLA. Charbonnet, I think you're going to see him split carries with Kenneth Walker, and it's going to be a good thing to see them share that load together and not take too much on, keep each other fresh. Anthony Bradford, you get from LSU at 108. Anthony Bradford, I wouldn't rule out the possibility of him eventually becoming a starter at some point this year with his potential that he brings to the table. Then Cameron Young, the defensive tackle from Mississippi State. With the shortage that the Seahawks have on the interior of the defensive line, Cam Young is going to get the opportunity to play right away for Seattle. Mike Morris at defensive end from Michigan, I liked a lot. He's going to be a development project of some sorts. We'll see how much playing time he gets immediately. Olu will back up Evan Brown for now, but if something happens to Evan Brown, watch out. Olu could have an opportunity to start, and maybe we see him rotate as a backup guard of some sorts too. Jerrick Reed has been kind of the talk of the offseason ever since arriving to Seattle, the 6th-round pick from New Mexico. is somebody that's caught the eye of coaches and the media, was under the radar, was not talked about a whole lot out of Mexico, and he's certainly making some noise. And then Kenny McIntosh, the second running back the Seahawks drafted, a really good pass catcher, won 2 national titles with the Georgia Bulldogs the past 2 seasons. Watch out to see what Kenny McIntosh can do and possibly be very involved in the passing game. The draft, I gave it an A as well for this Seahawks team. I thought that they did a really good job of finding talented players and also being in a position where, okay, maybe this wasn't our need, but this was a player we couldn't pass up by going with the talent and not ignoring that. To me, I liked the strategy. Didn't agree with every pick, but I thought the Seahawks did a really good job with their evaluations and what they found in these players, especially in those later rounds. To me, it was an A of what they did in the draft. Who was the Seahawks' best draft pick? And I'm talking about not just the overall talent, but the player in value of the pick that they made. Let me know what you think in the comment section of what the best draft pick for the Seahawks was. Folks, got to have you subscribe to the channel. We're talking about your Seahawks each and every day with the latest news and rumors. We also are doing live shows on Wednesday afternoons. We'll do our watch parties during game days. And just because the offseason is kind of slowing down doesn't mean we're slowing down here on the channel. We'll continue to bring you daily content. And the best part about it, it's free. If the Seahawks make a big move of some sorts, whether it's a trade, another free agent signing, whatever it may be, you know we're going to cover it here on the channel. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a moment. YouTube.com/SeahawksTV for more. So the next question. Now that the Seahawks have wrapped up, for the most part, their free agent signings and the draft and all that, where does this team go from here? Well, in the immediate future for this year, we've heard Pete Carroll say they're not done, that they still have some work to do, in particular that they want to find help on the interior of the defensive line for this season. And I believe Pete Carroll when he says that. I think that they are still looking around, trying to evaluate their options, whether it's a trade, free agency, whatever it may be. I think that there's still another addition to come there. As far as the long term of what's next, you have Geno Smith on a 3-year contract, but only 1 year of that is guaranteed. I think the Seahawks are still thinking about finding their future quarterback for the long term, and that gets pushed back another year potentially to next offseason. We heard that they liked Anthony Richardson and C.J. Stroud in particular in this past draft, but ultimately neither one of them were available when Seattle picked at 5. Look out for next year to see Seattle potentially find that next guy, and maybe they even sit behind Geno Smith potentially. But at least for the immediate, they're fine with Geno. For the long term, look out for next year to be when they find their next quarterback potentially. My overall grade for the offseason was an A. The Seahawks did what they needed to do to take that next step to compete at a high level at the NFC. Still more work to be done. Don't believe that they're finished, but they made the most of what they had, I felt. I liked what I saw from Seattle. Rate the Seahawks 2023 offseason. What do you think? How would you score it 1 through 100? Tell me in the comment section what you think of what they did. 1 through 100. Let me know how you think the Seahawks did with the moves that they've made. Hit me up on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Tyler Jones Live. You can find me there, and I'll see you next time here on the channel.